Welcome back. Now, it's indeed trying times for oil-producing communities, especially the people of Nembe of Bayelsa State, that's south Nigeria, where a huge oil spillage has decimated large parts of that area. Now, this is following the blowout from the OML 29 Wellhead 1, which is operated by Nigeria's largest indigenous oil firm, Aiteo Exploration and Production Company, in conjunction, of course, with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, because this is a joint venture. Now, the blowout has been spilling crude unabated into the Santa Barbara River, located in Nembe local government area, for about 1 month, destroying farmlands, fish ponds, and economic trees in the southern Ijaw communities. An estimated 2 million barrels, even though the oil company has actually denied that, was reportedly spilled into the river, polluting the flora and fauna of the area, even though, of course, as I said, the oil company has said it's actually not up to that amount of oil that has been spilled. Now, the Minister for Environment Minister of State for Environment of Nigeria, Sharon Ikazo, described the scene of the spill as, well, looking more like a war zone, adding that the government will have to put stiffer measures in place to avoid a recurrence. Let's take a listen now to the Minister of State as she speaks further on that oil spillage.
The devastation of the Niger Delta is massive. As we are cleaning up, what we are cleaning up is minute compared to the devastation going on. So it's something that government has to tackle head on. I wish we had put the pictures. There was a picture I saw. It was like a Hiroshima site. You remember Hiroshima in Japan? It was terrible. So this is something we have to tackle head on. We're beyond talking and having workshops. Then on the issue of penalties, that's why I had mentioned earlier the review of NOSDRA's bill. If you know, most of our acts were passed years ago. So you find maybe they'll give 100,000 naira fine. Anyone can pay that and go back and repollute. So we need to put stiffer penalties in place. Build the capacity of NOSDRA, which is the regulatory agency in the oil sector, to have the teeth to be able to bite without enhancing their capacity and reaffirming the legal framework, getting it stronger. They can't do much. These are areas we're looking into. It has to stop.
Well, nothing emphasizes how serious the situation is than what the minister said there. Now, the company says it has successfully closed the oil well, and cleanup efforts are actually underway to limit the spread of hydrocarbon, which of course has actually affected that area. It's a very serious situation, and don't forget, this spillage happened for 32 days. So we had oil gushing out of that oil well for 32 days, and we do not know the actual number of oil that has been spilled. Of course, the Bayelsa State government said 2 million barrels. We do not know for sure. The company has disputed that. But joining me now to discuss this further is Reverend Father Edward Obi, who is a national coordinator at National Coalition on Gas Flaring and Oil Spills in the Niger Delta. Thank you very much, Father, for joining us on the program. Let me get your take very quickly on this oil spillage. Some people have described it now as one of the worst in the country.
Thank you, DEJI, for inviting me. And I would concur with all those who are describing it in those terms as perhaps the worst spillage that we have had in this country so far, for the sheer length of time that it took to bring it to abatement. We had a team in there 2 days ago, a civil society team, and on arrival, they met fierce-looking men of the armed and paramilitary forces who would not let them into the site. And then, of course, they complained that after several, turnarounds and, deceptive tactics, etc., some of them gave up. They went in 3 boats. 2 boats gave up and went back to shore. And then 1 boat persevered and eventually got to the site. And the report I got was that there was complete devastation of the area, all kinds of aquatic animals, crabs and shellfishes, and all kinds that spawn in the mangrove were just found floating about and in different stages of decomposition. And that is only the tip of the iceberg when you compare that to what awaits these poor people that live in those areas, whose lives and livelihoods have been seriously impacted and damaged on account of this huge and humongous spill that went unabated for more than a month. My report is that villagers started to see the trickle of oil in their waters right from around the 2nd of November.
That's
so it's not just 32 days. It may be something like 34 days, perhaps 35 days.
Okay, now the oil well has been capped, and the very difficult process now begins, cleaning up that place. I mean, we're still talking about the Ogoni oil spillage, the cleanup. That cleanup effort, of course, is not progressing well at all. We can't deny that. And now we have to deal with this. Just paint a clear picture for us how difficult it would be to clean up that area now that has been affected.
Well, DEJI, first of all, the reason why we were crying foul over the slow progress of the work in Ogoni land is because we know that by the nature of this industry, more of such spills will occur. And here and there, right now, we have one right in our face. Now, it will take a long time to restore that area to anything like it was before the spill. First of all, the company and all the operatives will have to look for substances that can disintegrate the oil. And a lot of the time they use chemicals for this. Those chemicals themselves have adverse effects on the surrounding environment. Look at the mangroves that have been there for several years, perhaps centuries, have now all been burned down, exposing that environment to the harsh realities that the mangroves had protected it from over the years. Now, mangroves, as you may know, are spawning areas for fishes, for saltwater fishes. Now, as soon as the mangroves are removed or are no longer there, it means that a generation of fishes cannot spawn from that area. They have to go farther away and perhaps to more dangerous areas of the sea in order to spawn. That is a double disadvantage for the people who live in that area, who depend upon fishing for their livelihood. It is completely terrible for them because both their lives, not only their lives, but also their livelihoods have been severely impacted by this. And it will take a long time for them to even begin to see some recovery on the line. Then after disintegrating the oil, the next stage will be to try to find out the depth of the settlement of the oil, because the oil now settles in the mud and goes into the mud. In other words, they have to agitate the mud in order to bring out the clumps of oil that have settled in there, and then pack them away. It is a slow and a very tedious process. If you have observed what is going on in Ogoni land, in Bodo, for instance, where Shell and their associates are trying to clean up their mess after many years, you will see that it's a very slow and very tedious process.
Exactly. Now, you of course had the Minister of State for Environment speaking there, and she talked about the need for stiffer penalties But you know, at some point you get the impression from what the minister is saying is that you get the impression that some of this spill, like what has just happened now, is as a result of neglect or because we do not have stiffer penalties for companies, and so that's the reason why we have these occasional oil spillage.
Yeah, that is true. To some, I hope you know that oil field was bought by ITEO from a consortium of international oil companies,
yes,
at the cost of $2.4 billion. So the investment in it is quite huge. Now, the reason why that well blew out, from what I can suggest, is that the well had been capped for many years, and there was no regular check on those caps. So after many years, the cap tends to wear out, and with the pressure of oil welling from the bottom of the well coming up to the surface, it simply blew it out in all kinds of directions. So that it is because of the neglect on the part of the owners, the previous owners, who now sold it to new owners. And we questioned them right at the time of the exchange being made in 2015. Who takes responsibility for the assets, both the assets that are still functional and the assets that are already won? We asked that question over and over again. Now, the matter of stiffer penalties, we advocated this during the PIB when we were negotiating for the amendment of the NOSDRA Act. We advocated this, and we said the penalties are, in today's rate, look completely paltry, because an act that was promulgated 30 years ago, today the costs are very different. We were asking for huger penalties and also for delay to pay the penalties, that the culprits will be brought, the penalties will be significant enough for every single day that they fail to repair what they have damaged. So, but we advocated all this, but nobody was listening to us. Nobody was even making efforts to hear us out. We made several trips to the National Assembly, consulted with them, and made them see the impact of this kind of devastation. Not only a few months after the passage of the PIA, now we have this in our faces. So there should be stiffer penalties, and NOSDRA must be made capable of biting. They should not only back, they should bite and fine people like ITEO who have allowed their facilities to spew so much damage into the environment.
And of course, I can imagine what ITEO will face in the coming days, weeks, or months, because I mean, you can expect a barrage of legal cases come up. There's no question at all that the people will have to take this legally against ITEO.
They might even want to shift the blame to the previous owner, and this passing of the buck is likely to continue as we go along in this case.
Reverend Father Edward Obi, thank you very much for joining us on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.